Hey guys, it's Dasher Zach back with another review, this time of the Zaopin Z2. It's a mouse I've been wanting to try for a while. It's sort of an Ergo asymmetrical mashup, and boy did the quality on this thing blow me away. But do I think it's worth your time to pick it up? Let's find out. So here we have it, the Zaopin Z2, the second mouse from Zaopin, the Z1 being their first, which was an egg shape. I very much enjoyed that, so I was pretty hyped to try this thing out with its unique sort of asym, sort of an Ergo light shape. Comes up to 4K polling, a 3395 sensor. It's got the Nordic MCU, and also, even though you can't tell from the bottom here, there are hot swappable switches. There's a pair of skates that come to expose those screws. You just pop this thing open, undo 3 screws, put in whatever switch you want, screw them back in, and you are good to go. And with that, let's get into the implementation of the mouse. For the clicks here, we have TTC Gold mechanical switches, which I'm not historically a huge fan of. You can see the implementation here is relatively light and spammable. It's a little more responsive here toward the middle. If you get at the bottom, there's a little bit more play in the switches. Right here, you can get it where it's not quite the most spammable, a little bit too much pre-travel if you're clicking way at the bottom. Interestingly enough, it's an issue I'm seeing here when testing and showing you, but it's not something I experienced in-game. As far as play goes, side to side, rock solid, barely any there, and the clicks do get heavier here if you press towards the top of the buttons. Overall, I would say these are sort of more plasticky than normal without feeling too cheap. They're not the most tactile, most satisfying clicks I've ever felt, but it was not something that I noticed in-game that I didn't like. So overall, they get a pass for me, something like a 7 out of 10. The scroll wheel has very defined steps, probably about a medium to light scroll here. The click on the scroll wheel is very satisfying to use, very responsive, probably about a medium actuation. It reminds me of the GPX, but a little bit heavier, but man, does it feel really good to use in game. So really no complaints here on the scroll wheel. Coming to the side buttons, I'm a huge fan of these. They're not too high up because the mouse itself is not that tall, and they're a little bit on the larger side. They protrude from the shell very nicely, very easy to access. They are surprisingly tactile and spammable. They rebound very well, and I had no issues at all using these in game. In fact, I quite enjoyed them. If you look here, there is barely any side to side play, very impressive. Not a lot of pre-travel, and you cannot sink the side buttons into the shell. These side buttons are rock solid, almost a 9 out of 10 for me. I'm not sure what else I'd want besides maybe if they were just larger, but honestly, with how you grip the mouse, they might get in the way of your thumb, so they knocked it out of the park here with the side buttons. Coming to the bottom of the mouse, you can see I have pulled out some accessories here, which is not something I usually do, but what the hell, this has hot swappable switches, and it seems relevant. The default skates, not accessible for the hot swapping, but they do have the second skate here for the back of the mouse, which exposes those 3 screws, which is all you need access to get the mouse open. Also a couple extra sensor rings, and another pair of skates here, a nice addition. They provide this little screwdriver here, so you can get those screws out to change your switch. A bit of nice grip tape, I didn't use it myself, but it felt nice and grippy. And I figured why not show this off. A nice carrying bag. I always appreciate that. Now back to the mouse. The sensor is a little bit forward of center, something I've been preferring lately, which is a change in my preferences. The skates themselves are primo, top quality for a stock skate. Probably a little bit quicker than a core pad if you use those, maybe like an Obsidian. Quicker than a stock skate. They're high quality. They have a very nice glide, and I actually quite enjoyed these. I had no desire at all to replace the skates on this, which is not something I can usually say for a mouse, specifically one that comes in at $50 to $60. So absolutely killed it here from Zaopin on the skates, which as I use mice more and more over time, I realize is a massive aspect of how I enjoy and experience a mouse. Lastly, coming to the coating, there is a coating here. It's a little bit dry and chalky as you start out, like a little slick when you start using the mouse. As you use the mouse more, it does warm up and become grippy and rubberized. So like it's a solid coating. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's better than ATK, which I'm assuming some of you that watch this now have a reference point to. It's probably like a 7 out of 10. Nothing to write home about. Not a fail. Not a massive win. The build quality on this mouse is freaking fantastic. There is no side flex, no bottom flex, no top flex. We're not flexing here at the front. You saw there was no play here on the main switches at all. The side buttons were well implemented. This thing honestly is a little bit heavier, and for that weight you get an absolute tank of a mouse. Top-notch build quality, and as I've said before, I don't mind a higher weight for solid build integrity. This is teetering the line, if I'm being honest, on what I'd like to see, but hey, they killed it here too. We're going to address the elephant in the room here early on, and that is the stock weight of the Zaopin Z2 coming in at 65.2 grams. That's heavy. It's not egregious. It's not over 70 grams, but we are pushing the upper limits of what's comfortable, so keep that in mind as we continue forward here. As I stated earlier, the shape here could be said to be ergonomic, but I like to think of it more as asymmetrical, as this mouse doesn't really have the strong curvature that most Ergo mice have, and the best way to demonstrate this, I think, is to do some direct comparisons. So probably one of the most popular mice on the market that is considered asymmetrical is the MPO1S, MPO1. This is the Incott GHero, which is kind of a slight mashup of the size of those two mice. As you can see here on the side-by-side, there is a large back flare and curvature on the right side here of the GHero, and the Zaopin Z2 is remarkably flat here on the right side, and that's something you'll find throughout the entire mouse. The other side of the mouse here as well, look at that complete lack of curvature. It's almost entirely flat on both sides of the mouse, compared to what you would find even on an asymmetrical mouse. Look at the curvature on this GHero. Another comparison we can give is the Deathadder V3. Again, you can see the strong curvature on both sides. It's a little bit flatter here on the top, but if we bring up the Z2 here, you can see again, super flat, just not really on the same wavelength as the standard flagship Ergos you would see on the market. As you can see here, it's also a little bit smaller than the Deathadder V3. I believe it comes in at about 123 millimeters. It's not a huge mouse, it's not a small mouse, it's sort of right in the middle, which I like. That means it'll fit a lot of people's hands. It's also close to symmetrical, but not quite on the front here. It's got a pretty low click height. You could also argue what the heck is the purpose of this mouse? It's not an Ergo, it's not an Ambi. It's just kind of trying to be both and doesn't really achieve either. And to that I say, that's a great point. Honestly, some people might find this mouse boring or awkward in the hand because of the lack of side curvature where your thumb would go here, and also the lack of curvature on the right side where you'd want to rest your pinky. This didn't bother me that much on the right side here. If I thought about it, I'll be honest, the left side here, I do wish there was some more curvature, but it just sort of felt like a very flat-sided Ambi mouse. This is sort of like reminds me of the sides of the GPX here. In my hand, it was pretty comfortable, to be honest with you. Again, I have a tilt grip, which you might know if you watch me. I'm kind of a psychopath here. Mice probably fit your hand differently than mine, but overall, it's pretty comfortable to me, even with the sort of Ergo Ambi mashup that we have here. One more quick comparison, the Thorn shape here, you can see the click height is more sort of on par with it. You can't really tell from this angle, but the Thorn shape is a little bit taller than that of the Z2. But again, a quick look at the bottoms here shows a drastic difference in the curvature, and it does show how really small the Thorn is, as it is one of the smaller Ergos that we have as far as length, even though it's quite bulbous. Again, firmly placing the Z2 in the mid-range for size. Something else I want to sort of dispel real quick is that some people said that, hey, it's an asymmetric GPX. Not really. You can see here from the front, not very similar. On a side profile, the hump is a bit taller and a bit further back here on the Z2. You may have noticed by now this is an ATK A9, same shape as GPX. Regardless, the GPX, even with its flat size stuff, has some curvature here that appears on both sides, and I would say there's even less of that on the Z2. It doesn't really curve in and out like a standard tapering does. It just sort of veers down here on like a diagonal, which is different, I'll say. And again, something else to experience in hand to see if you like it. But yeah, asymmetric GPX, this is not. As far as my overall experience with this mouse, it was pretty positive. I won't say that I performed spectacularly with it. I did fine, pretty much average for any mouse you might try, but it didn't really stand out in any positive or negative way. There were not really any notable results in Mouse Tester that I felt I needed to display here, and that was reflected in the performance in game. Never really saw any hiccups or hitches in the sensor performance in any of the scenarios or games that I was playing. This is not like a top tier, god tier implementation of the sensor, but it's not bad by any means, and I would say it is on the upper end of budget and sensor implementations, a little bit ahead of something like M-Shows, and maybe even ATK, probably on par with theirs. I'll be honest, I just dropped this mouse here and it sits flat on its side, so that's cool. Might use that for future videos. Does that work with the GPX? Shit. All right, I'm going to use that going forward. Anyway, not a ton to write home about performance-wise here. One more thing I do want to point out though, with this not full Ergo shape, it sort of gave you some of the comfort of an ergonomic mouse, but I didn't really feel like I was limited in my micro adjustments quite like I am with an ergonomic mouse. The way Ergos work, I feel like the far right flare out sort of throws my pinky out of whack, and just I kind of lose exactly how I want to feel the mouse in hand. And with this right side here being a little bit flatter and a little less of a flare out, I didn't really experience that issue, which was a positive. So I did perform a little bit better on this than I did in the standard Ergo, but not quite up to par with how I felt on the best small Ambis that I prefer for something like Kovacs. Just seems like it tries to be a middle ground in every way, and hey, if that's what they're going for, cool, they have achieved it. As far as software goes, there's both a desktop and web driver. This is the desktop driver. Looks a lot like Lamzu's old implementation. It's fine, has all the settings you would want. Jumping to the web driver, it's sort of an interesting thing here. It seems that they've exactly copied the UI of the desktop driver to the web, so this is a custom implementation here, not just a copy and paste necessarily. You've got everything you might want here with polling rate, your 3 settings for ripple control, angle snap, and motion sync. I always use this on highest performance. Did most of my testing on 2K, but did check out 4K and 1K as well. And lastly, always use long distance mode in my testing. As far as measurements go, the narrowest point here is weirdly far forward, and I'm getting about 58.2 millimeters. Dead center on the mouse, about 60.4 millimeters, with the back flaring out to a full 64.6 millimeters. Because the length is sort of an interesting thing here, I am going to measure it and give you about 123 millimeters on that. And we are meeting the max hump height of 39.4 millimeters. So that about wraps up for my thoughts on the Zaopin Z2. I like the unique shape. It's very high quality all around. And if you can get past the higher weight, I can give this thing a very strong recommendation. I really enjoyed my time in it, and I think you might as well. I do really appreciate the affordable price and the solid colorway choices, even if it's not the perfect shape for me. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at DasherJack for my mouse musings. Join our Discord server. Check out the Mousecast podcast. And with that, we'll see you.